Hey crafters, I'm Alex Vanover and welcome back to my channel, DIY Alex. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make these medium cardstock sunflowers using your Cricut. All you're going to need other than your machine is a couple of colors of cardstock, some hot glue, and a hot glue gun to make these adorable sunflowers. They're perfect for sunflower themed weddings that are going to be taking place this fall. They're perfect for decorating wedding showers and baby showers. They would look adorable put together as a photo backdrop for a party or something like that. There's just so many different ways to use these flowers. Make sure to tell me in the comments why you're learning to make paper sunflowers. Before I show you what to do, make sure that you subscribe below to my channel so that you never miss a new video. Okay, so to get started with our sunflower, first let's insert it from our downloads. There it is. We're going to download the SVG file, which says like Chrome HTML document. That's the SVG. So it's asking if we are going to import unsupported items. That's fine. So we'll click continue. Then I'm going to rename this the Sunflower SVG. We'll click save. Then I'm going to click on the image and insert it into my project. So this template actually comes with two different sizes or two different sunflowers in the same template. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of one of those because I'm only going to cut one sunflower. So make it a little smaller, a little more manageable. And we'll start by ungrouping. So these four things are for the first flower and these four down at the bottom are for the second flower. So I'm actually going to get rid of these two because I like having the center in the middle like this one does, and both of these. There are two of these in the SVG, but I only ended up using one. So I'm going to ungroup again and get rid of one of those. So then I'm going to select everything again all at once, and I'm going to keep it proportionate, so I'm going to click Group. And I ended up needing these are the centerpieces, and I ended up needing more centerpieces than what's included in the original template. So I'm going to keep all four of these, and I'm going to make this, I'm going to start by making it about 14 inches wide, and that's for everything. Because what I'm trying to do is get the right diameter of my flowers, but keep everything proportionate. So I'm going to ungroup, and that makes this flower 5.7 inches wide, and this one 5.3. So I'm going to group everything again and make it a little bit bigger. I always try to take advantage of as much material as I can, and since I'm using 8.5 by 11 paper, I want to get these flowers as close to 8 inches or 8.5 inches wide as I can. So let's try making it 17 inches across. All right, so that made this flower almost 7 inches wide, so that's good. And this one is 6.5. So that's probably close enough. I also want to make sure that these aren't going to stick off the end of my paper. And that's making them a little bit too long. Oh, you know what? Yeah. So that's making them a little bit taller than my piece of paper. So let's group everything back together and we'll make everything just a little smaller, but it'll still be really close. So let's make everything 16 inches wide. And that will make each of these strips 10.3 inches. So that'll fit okay on my cardstock. And that'll make our flower 6.5 inches across. So that's perfect. So next we're going to save our project. Just in case we ever have any problems with Design Space and we have to come back here, all of our work will be saved. And I am using two different colors of cardstock to make my sunflower look like it's shaded a little bit. So you may want to change these colors if you're using the same color cardstock on both layers. So next we'll click Make It. So I'm going to cut both of these on cardstock, and then I'll show you guys how to assemble your flower. So once your Cricut has cut out all your parts, make sure that your hot glue gun is heating up, because that's what you're going to need to put the flower together while we work on all the folding. So some people use a bone folder to fold a lot of their paper flowers. I love to use a bone folder because I think it makes things really easy. But with the width of these petals, I didn't end up using a bone folder. I'm actually going to be curling my petals around a mini hot glue stick. So use whatever works for you and whatever you like best, but there's lots of ways that you can do this with or without a bone folder if you have one. So the first fold that we're going to do is we need to curl all of our petals upward, because that's the way that a sunflower's petals normally look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my glue stick and I'm going to wrap it around the sides of the flower and just fold them up around it. Just like that. I'll show you a better visual. So I stick the hot glue stick in the center, and then I curl both the side pieces around the glue stick. And that gives it kind of a nice natural curve. It doesn't have to be a super dramatic curve. I don't like firm creases in my flowers most of the time, so I prefer to fold my petals like around objects like this, but you can do whatever works best for you, whatever you like. So we're just going to do this for each of our petals on both layers. You could also use a dowel rod, like a really thin dowel rod. That would be a great other object for you to curl your petals around. I'm not sure if I said this in the design space portion, but I got this template from designbundles.net, and I will link it in the description for you if you want to use the same template that I used. All right, so that's all these petals. They look a lot better than they did when they were flat. So now we're going to move on to our other layer. This is going to look so good, you guys, especially with the two-tone color. I love the way that looks. So I'm just going to follow the same technique and just fold the two sides up around my glue stick. If you can, you want to try to hold the glue stick as straight down the center of your petal as you can so that both sides get an even curve. But as always, flowers in nature aren't perfect, and so we don't need to worry about making our flowers perfect either. All right, so now all of our petals are folded. So the first thing that I'm going to do is stick the two layers of petals together. So the key here is to make sure that you layer your petals so that the top layer's petals are in the window of the other petals. So that means that your flowers are going to look best if it's layered like this, instead of if your petals are on top of each other. Because even though you can still see them, that doesn't look nearly as natural as that. So that's the goal. You just want to try to offset your petals just a little bit. Once you get your top layer of petals offset by your bottom layer of petals and the two holes in the center of the template line up, make sure that you use one hand to hold the petals down and bring one side up. That way you can put down a dot of hot glue so that your layers don't get messed up. There we go. And just a little glue will do it, because you just want to kind of tack it in place. Then you want to rotate your flowers to the other side, pull up that top layer of petals and glue it there as well. Once your layers are tacked together, it should look something like this. Then we'll start working on the center. So this is going to be our center that's going to lay in the center of our petals and hold down our base, but we're not going to glue this down just yet. The first thing that you're going to do is take your center pieces and fold it in half as closely as you can. You want to try to make sure that both of the edges are touching to keep them nice and even. That way all your center pieces will look exactly the same. So once your center is folded in half, we're going to glue along this bottom seam to keep it folded shut. Now you just want to use a little bit of glue all along the way. You don't want to over glue it. You're just trying to keep it closed in half so that we can roll it up nice and tight. I like to lay a little bit of glue and press it down before it gets hard, and then glue the next section. You want to try to keep your glue along this bottom solid part and try not to let it get into the fringes too much, because we're going to spread the fringes out and make the flower look a little more natural. Just hold the piece in half until the glue sets a little bit. We're going to follow the same process for the 3 remaining pieces. If you get a little bit of glue seeping out the bottom like I did, no big deal, because the way we're going to glue these centerpieces, you're not even going to see the bottom. Another reason it's important to not use too much hot glue is because we're going to be rolling these so tight. If you have big lumps of glue, that might make these a little bit harder to roll. Okay, so once you have all 4 pieces glued and the glue has set, it's time to start rolling our center. So start with just one piece of your center, and you're going to start rolling it as tightly as you can in the beginning, and you're just going to roll it from one side to the other. It's a little tricky to get started, but once you get it moving, it gets a lot easier. One key is to try to keep the bottom piece as even as you can, because it's going to have to be glued to the base, and so you don't want a crazy uneven bottom. You may have to squish it to get it to be round a little bit, because mine was looking a little bit flat, but that's okay. When you get to the end of your first roll, you're going to put a dab of glue on the end of it and seal it into the rest of the center. But before you glue, take the chance to pinch it between your fingers and try to get that bottom as even as you can. Let that glue set for just a moment. And then we're going to use the other centerpieces to just build on this small center and just make it bigger and wider. So once that glue has set, I'm going to put another dot right where the other end of the centerpiece starts, and I'm going to start a new piece and continue wrapping around my center. I'm also going to tack down this little piece. I guess the end wasn't glued as well as it should be, so I'm going to tack that down as well. Just a tiny little bit of glue. When we wrap it all up, you won't even notice that these are not continuous pieces. So I'm going to use a fair amount of glue here to get this started, just because I want to make sure that it's a good connection. And I'm just going to line up the bottom and the top the best I can and hold on while it sets. Then once it's ready, you can continue wrapping around your center. And you can kind of take it between your fingers and squish it and make it a little bit round, because you do want it to be as round as possible. So I'm just keeping it pinched between my fingers, keeping it nice and tight until I get to the end. So now that I'm to the end of my second piece, I'm going to put another dab of glue so I can continue my center. If you have some gapping between your pieces, since you have a brown base, you're not even going to notice. You can glue along the way if you think that that would help you. I found that this was wound tight enough that I didn't really need to do that. It's going to get a little trickier when you get to those outer layers. It's just a little more paper and becoming a little more bulky. But the goal is to make the base about the same size as the center base so that you don't see any of this paper on the bottom. But once we fluff out our little fringes, you won't see this base at all. All right, now it's time to anchor our very last piece. So I'm going to use a fair amount of glue, and I'm going to glue longer along the base piece to make sure that it has a good, nice finish. I'm going to spend an extra couple minutes letting that set before I start making the fringes to make sure that the glue is set really well. Once the glue is set, you can begin to pull your fringes out. So I just like to start around the outside and kind of work my way in. Be careful not to unglue some of your glue tacks. I really like using this type of centerpiece because it gives the sunflower a lot of texture in the center, just like a sunflower in real life. Make sure that you get into those center pieces and pull those in opposite directions. Don't be afraid to fluff your fringes a lot and make your centerpiece nice and textured. Especially these outer pieces, they're really what's going to cover the edge of your brown base. So to make sure that my base is centered, I'm going to go ahead and glue my center base piece to my petals, and then I'm going to put the center on top when I'm finished. So I'm just going to put kind of a wavy ring of glue around my petals. You want to use a good bit because your center is going to be a little bit heavy, so if your flower is hanging, it might need some extra support. And you want to try to align the hole in the centerpiece with the hole of your two petal pieces if you can. So our last step is to just add more glue around the base and stick our center on. So I am going to use a fair amount of glue here because I just want to make sure that I do a really good job of gluing that base piece on. But I'm not going to get too close to the edge of the base because I don't want glue to seep out from underneath the center. Place it on there as centered as I can and push it down. And there you have it, a gorgeous textured paper sunflower. I hope you found making these paper sunflowers just as easy as I did. But if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments for me and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below so that you never miss a new video to see what I am crafting next. I'm Alex Vanover with DIY Alex, and let's craft again soon.